What is something that sounds safe but actually isn't? Not safe for work. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Everybody should rightfully know that Tide Pod challenges were unsafe, but the more innocent one was the cinnamon challenge. Cinnamon powder does not mix with water, so the instant reflex from the body was to cough to get rid of this unknown substance, but the inhale of air to cough could cause you to inhale the cinnamon into your lungs, and that could cause serious harm or even death if severe enough. Interacting with a giant anteater, their claws can kill a jaguar without much issue. Grain silos. People die every year because they explode with static electricity. I say this all the time. Pressure washing. Had a guy in college with a younger brother he'd love to pick on. Sent him to the hospital after hydroblasting him with a 4,000 psi. Can commonly be found and started by kids. Honestly, do not know why people don't recognize how dangerous it is. Telling your HR department how you really feel about your boss. Do it. Mouthing off to your stranger. You never know how crazy they might be or if they have a weapon. Just bite your tongue. Bison. Like the wild big cow-looking animals. I grew up around them, and I see too many tourists in Yellowstone going to take a selfie with one. Those big motherfuckers will kill you without batting an eye. Dryer lint. Clean your dryer vents, people. Cleaning a cat's litter box with bleach. Don't mix ammonia and bleach. You'll be committing a war crime. Safes. They will bloody well crunch your fingers if you're not careful. Farming. Everyone thinks about bucolic pastures, pretty red barns, and cute little critters running around, but farming is the 6th most dangerous occupation in the United States, higher than law enforcement, firefighters, power line workers, and iron workers. Most of the farming deaths involve accidents with machinery, but grain storage deaths are high as well. If a farmer falls into, say, a bin of canola, he sinks to the bottom and suffocates fairly quickly, as well as the unfortunate ones that fall into the pig manure pits and drown in liquid shit. Farm animals also kill a lot of farmers too, because a 180-pound man doesn't have good odds going up against a 1,200-pound cow. Plus the fact that no one talks about is the mental health-related deaths. Farming is incredibly stressful, and suicide deaths in the farming community are rising steadily. Well, I don't know if this actually sounds safe, but trampolines. People think by putting the netting around them, etc., that you won't get hurt. Think again. You are one awkward landing from lots of potentially life-changing injuries. I've personally gotten to view the inside of an adult foot ankle because of a trampoline. Four-wheelers. So many injuries and deaths from people who don't respect what they can do and just how easy they are to topple. My sister passed some years back at 19 years old on a four-wheeler she had just purchased. She was trying to get to a wooded area on the other side of a neighborhood. She was with friends who were also riding their own. She had a girlfriend on the back of hers who was a little heavyset. In order to get to the area, they had to cross a small drainage ditch, maybe 4 to 5 feet from the bank to the bottom of it. It was completely dry. She attempted to go up it straight ahead, and with the girl in the back, my understanding is that when she gassed it from the front tires left the ground, flipping it over backwards on top of them. The passenger was thrown to the side, but my sister held on probably out of shock, and the weight of the entire thing came down on her head via the handlebars, pinching her between that and the concrete. By the time any help arrived, she was already gone. If you take anything from this story, or the hundreds of others you're likely to read about in your own life, wear a helmet. Anything can happen in the blink of an eye. If I'm honest, fair rides. You think it'd be safe. It's surrounded by a lot of people. So if anything were to happen, help would be there straight away. And there's all these safety precautions. But the amount of things that have gone wrong way too often is scary. Boating. I'm a boat mechanic, but I didn't have much boating experience before I started working on them, and I was pretty caught off guard to discover how dangerous it can be. Everyone thinks of boating as this idyllic family activity, and it usually is. But a staggering amount of shit can go wrong on the water and leave you stranded or worse. They are submerged objects like rock formations and logs that can cause you to get ejected and or sink your boat. It's fairly easy to forget a plug and sink your boat. It happens frequently. Most boat owners have no idea how to operate a boat safely or even competently. It's trickier than you might think. It takes some experience and technique. Alcohol abuse among boaters is rampant. People often don't secure their trailer correctly to the tow vehicle, not latched, wrong ball hitch size, unsecured, improperly secured safety chain, etc. People don't service their trailers. Wheels fall off from lack of grease. I'd conservatively estimate that 30% of trailer brakes don't work. Percentage goes up logarithmically with age of the trailer. Give boat trailers a wide berth on the freeway. Often, people don't follow basic safety like life jackets and kill lanyards. You can hit a big wake or wave and get knocked away from the controls, and your boat is now a self-guided missile. If you're swimming behind a running boat, you can pass out from the fumes and drown. You can get chopped to bits by the propeller. You can get hit by a boat being driven by a drunk, inexperienced, or incompetent person. A fuel leak can cause a buildup of fumes in the bilge that gets ignited by engine electronics. It goes on and on. Acetaminophen, Tylenol. Great, but the dose makes the poison, especially dangerous for hard drinkers and alcoholics. Don't put your feet up on the dashboard of a car when you're riding in the front seat. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a seatbelt. Your kneecaps are going to go through your skull if you get in an accident. I used to do it all the time when I was younger. Now I want to scream every time I see it. Holding your breath while scuba diving. If you ascend from depth with your airway closed while breathing compressed air, you are at an extreme risk of rupturing a lung, damaging your alveoli, and or suffering from other lung overexpansion injuries. This is because when you take a breath under significant external pressure, the air you breathe in much more dense, and so your lungs can get more of it per breath, but as the pressure acting on you lessens, the air in your lungs expand, and if your airways aren't open, your lungs will be damaged from the overpressure. It is an easily avoidable risk, but if ignored, the consequences are often deadly or at least permanently damaging. Moderately oldish buildings. I became an asbestos inspector for my job, and let me tell you, the more you find out about asbestos and what we put in it, the less time you want to spend in any structure built prior to the mid-80s, and that's just asbestos, not even going into other hazardous building materials like lead. Asbestos truly was an almost miraculous building material. It's cheap to acquire, and adding it to almost any construction material made that material better at its job. It's also insidiously easy to get complacent around it. Unless you're breathing insane amounts of it, you wouldn't know it's there unless you had knowledge beforehand. It doesn't smell. You won't feel queasy or nauseous. It just seems like normal dust, with the caveat that if you breathe too much or are just unlucky, there's a chance that the latter half of your life will be spent in absolute misery if one of the several medical conditions associated with asbestos doesn't just kill you within a few years of showing symptoms. Taking the sounds part of the title literally, I'd say silence in a forest. It sounds like a cliche from horror stories or creepypastas, but it's a commonly regarded fact that when a forest is silent, there's an apex predator around. This is commonly associated with animals like tigers, but it means the wildlife in the forest ran away or tried to hide its presence to avoid the danger. So, while silence doesn't seem too big a deal, in a forest it means there's something nearby that you probably don't want to be dealing with. Flushable wipes. They can actually clump together into big balls that clog your drain or worse, cause issues for the town's plumbing way down the line. But they feel good. Anesthesia. I don't feel like people have enough respect for how complicated and dangerous it is to put people to sleep. I have patients all the time ask me to put them under for routine procedures that don't require sedation, and I always think to myself that you wouldn't be asking that if you knew how much training and monitoring and intensive effort it takes to keep someone asleep safely without them stopping breathing. Pregnancy. A woman's body is designed to perform this function, and yet you and the thing you are growing inside you can die or kill you. Retractable dog leashes don't give you that much control and can potentially cause serious injuries to you or your dog. Replacing or adjusting garage door springs. This one doesn't sound perfectly safe, I admit, but the ratio of perceived safety to actual, holy crap, this can end super bad, is there for sure. The eyes of potatoes, if they've sprouted any green, can be poisonous. Potatoes are members of the nightshade family and are the most common cause of solanine poisoning in humans. Their green stuff can cause vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, paralysis of the central nervous system, and even death in rare cases. Use that weird thing on your peeler to gouge out those eyes. Sleeping. Many people have sleep apnea who are just not overweight, old, smoke, or unhealthy. Snoring is the big indicator. You stop breathing dozens of times an hour through the night until your body responds by waking you up, and it repeats again. Not only does it slowly starve your brain of oxygen and put tremendous strain on your heart over years, but can cause such excessive drowsiness and sleep deprivation you can fall asleep while driving. If your partner says you snore a lot, or you're always tired despite getting regular sleep, get it checked out. Regular being sleepy when driving is not normal, nor is always falling asleep when you sit and watch TV, read, or just relax for a few minutes. Essential oils. Sounds pretty safe, right? Wrong. Lavender oil, eucalyptus oil, sage, and quite a few others have been linked with causing seizures and even death in pets and, a bit less likely but still, young children. Too high of a concentration in a small area is toxic to pets. Driving. Doing 100 down the freeway in a metal can powered by highly flammable combustion liquids, and motherfuckers still have the nerve to cut you off. Opening a box with a box cutter. Someone I know at work at a place where they have a "it's been this many days since our last accident" sign, and after about 184 days with no accidents, they had to change it to 0 days because someone was careless with a box cutter. Use your teeth. Disassembling and cleaning your firearm. Somehow people still manage to kill themselves by not clearing the weapon, and it seems like the most basic and common sense step. I just don't understand how people forget to clear it and then shoot themselves. Food poisoning. Not that people think it's safe, mind you, but people think at worst you're sick for a few days and that's that. I got food poisoning from a pizza nearly 4 years ago. I now have severe chronic health issues that are extremely debilitating to the point that many days I'm not functional. I have a team of doctors, my GP, a gastroenterologist, and an ND. I've tried tons of medications, supplements, diets, had tons of tests done. Nothing seems to help much. Food poisoning is no joke. Practice good food prep safety, and if you get food from a restaurant or wherever that seems like it might be off, don't eat it. It's not worth it. Social media stunts. You might see people survive getting shocked when they put metallic eating utensils in an electric socket. You might see people survive eating all sorts of chemicals and even cleaning solvents. You might see people survive making a little cringe video on top of a building or the side of a cliff. You might see people survive while dancing outside of their moving vehicle. Eventually, someone will die because they underestimated the risks. Don't be the next example of a dead person who is just trying to get some likes from strangers. I once went diving with great whites in South Africa, and they assured us again and again there was absolutely no way any white could get through those steel bars. They were 110% safe. Then the lady who went right after me had a white torpedo the cage and get its entire face caught on the bars, shaking the entire fucking boat like a sea monster. The lady was not happy when she came out of the water. She was physically fine, but just had a 20-foot tooth torpedo like a foot away from her face for a solid minute. Earbuds. They'll put you at risk of early onset hearing loss, the way your 80-year-old grandpa yells, "What does he say?" at 150 decibels is gonna be us at 40, because we can't stop blasting Sicko Mode by Travis Scott at full volume straight into our ears. Using a dull knife to cut anything. Dull knives are unpredictable. You don't know where the extra force is going to go or how the piece, target thing is going to react. With a sharp knife, it's likely to either cut once and be done or get stuck in the material. That means either it's over in one, or it whittles away, or it becomes dull. A dull blade means sawing at stuff or using the blade as a wedge. I've shattered both workman and kitchen knives by wedging the blade and trying to pry things. Sawing means a load of motion with your hands near a tough edge, easy to get RSI or catch on the work. In both cases, extra stress on the blade could cause it to break or shatter. If you've ever had a hacksaw blade break or used a kitchen knife to break freezer stuff up, it usually suddenly and a significantly high risk of harm. Also, with a sharp blade, you get a clean wound that heals reasonably well. Think of a paper cut. With a dull blade, it's more of a tear or puncture than a laceration. Tends to require more than some new skin, liquid bandage, or a simple band-aid. Yes, I went through a lot of gauze till I learned this as a kid. Aspirin. Anything with acetylsalicylic acid. It is actually not mainly a pain medication, but an antithrombotic drug, a thing a lot of people still are not aware of. That means it will literally stop your body from stopping bleeding. While that can have its uses, e.g. to prevent a stroke or heart attack, it sometimes has unwanted consequences. In a regular trauma, it will increase the hematoma, sometimes to the point of damaging soft tissue. During menstruation, it will increase the heaviness of the flow. Add in head trauma, it is a true killer. People routinely knock their head on something small, and a minuscule vessel in their head bursts, or it ruptures spontaneously. Normally, it is not a big deal. You get a small intracranial bleeding, but due to the blood clotting, it will stop fast, and you get a headache until the body repairs the damage. If the patient takes aspirin, the blood flow won't stop. The cranial cavity can only take minimal amounts of pressure before the brain takes the first damage. Often, people then use more aspirin to reduce the pain further, worsening their situation. Their minimal bleeding that none would have ever known of is now a major intracranial bleeding, and a lot of people get permanently disabled or die by these. I literally have 2 cases in our ICU at the moment who came in with that. One taking aspirin as an intended heart medication though. One is basically beyond rescue, and we wait for the necessary tests to certify brain death to be undertaken so that we can start organ donation process. Working in heat. Researchers have determined that temperatures as low as 88 degrees Fahrenheit can be fatal, even to young people in good health, and even if they stay hydrated, because you're not actually getting any cooling from sweating. It's basically like having a fever and doing absolutely nothing to bring it down.